Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Friday, the 18th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane. How goes it, Jonny?
Very good, Derek. Very good. Glad to be on again, and looking forward to talking Rangers.
I love this. Scott says, "Take it we're late because of Jonny."
No.
We're here now. That is the main thing. So plenty to get our teeth stuck into. Before we do that, folks, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the great guys at the Glasgow-based fencing company that you can trust, and proud partners of the Rangers Review. They offer free consultations, whether it's a small-scale refurbishment or a large-scale complete fencing project. There's no task that they cannot or will not tackle. You also get 10% off with the code Rangers Review if you head on over to their website, willows-fencing.com. What we're going to do, we're going to touch on Josh's piece, great piece that Joshua had on the website yesterday, folks. So we'll touch on that. Then we'll take a bit of a Q&A again, like we did yesterday. Some interesting questions were raised, so we'll do it likewise. So make sure you are a subscriber. You have to be a subscriber to get your questions into myself and Jonny. Make sure you do that. And there's a good few of you were mentioning yesterday about the WhatsApp channel, and a few of you yesterday saying how can you join. So I'll pop the link in the comment section here, folks. So if you want to click on that, that should take you through to where you need to be on WhatsApp if you want to join us there. There's over 12,000 of you following us on WhatsApp. So very popular place if you want to go and consume your Rangers news via that medium. Right, we'll touch on Josh's piece then. Now, I come armed with graphs. Now, he's not here, so I may butcher his illustrations here, but it's a fantastic piece on Russell Martin and how he's looking to exercise control in his Rangers team. He doesn't want Rangers to play basketball, something that was a common occurrence certainly last season. And two interesting graphs I'm going to bring up just on XG. So if you're not a fan of XG, then I profusely apologise. You look away now. So this is an interesting graph here on XG of XG conceded against obviously at the other end of the pitch. The green determines the XG that Rangers had compared to the purple line, which is the chances that Rangers were giving away. And that blue line there you can see is the change of manager when Barry Ferguson took over. That line there about 2/3 of the way up the graph. So you can certainly see that is a tad chaotic. There was a drop-off in the XG created when a change of manager. That sort of trend line was going down anyway under Philippe Clement in the dying embers of his reign. But there's a clear rise in chances being given away by Rangers, certainly at the tail end of Clement, Jonny, and then when Barry took over as well. Hence Joshua's argument that it was a bit of a basketball game watching Rangers last season. Now, if you compare that to Celtic, and you can clearly see a vast difference here. So there's Celtic's XG in the green, a big gap between the XG conceded there at the bottom. And that's what you want to achieve if you're going to be champions, Jonny.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get that Rangers graph back up there, Derek. You do need that level of consistency. You can see here that Clement, in terms of defensively, had kind of, I think things were improving towards the December period, wasn't there? There was a big turnaround. You felt like watching the team that things started to click, and then all of a sudden you had that Queen's Park result, and then the result was at St Mirren the next game that sealed his fate. Can't remember who it was. It was at Ibrox. I think it was St Mirren, the last game one had.
Because they went to Tynecastle and won, which was incredible given they were rotten that day.
But you can see that was going back in the wrong direction as Clement was relieved of his duties. And then I suppose the sort of slightly, I think, worrying if you're Barry Ferguson thing is just how bad Rangers were in terms of conceding XG under that management team. Really, really poor. And I think that backs up the eye test, doesn't it, Derek? That in many ways it looked like that the team had regressed even further.
Yeah.
Barry, being a club legend, didn't get the same level of scrutiny that, say, Clement would have if he'd been overseeing that. But it got even worse under Barry's management team. There's no doubt about that, and the facts bear that out. Now, Barry would probably point to this little bit at the end, Derek, where there's the last 3 games where Rangers XG is going in the right direction again, and the XG conceded is going in the right direction again. Still higher than it was at any point during the Clement era, right enough. So it still shows you that the problems, and when these lines are too close together, you do get that basketball effect, as Joshua writes in the article, and it means that games are so close that you can have a situation where one moment decides a game, and you can't have that at Rangers. There needs to be a level of dominance. That's why I've always been an advocate of Rangers implementing an aggressive attacking style of play in domestic football. I think, and I've been saying this for a while, I think a manager that is too wedded to one single philosophy at Rangers is going to struggle eventually, because if that's a very attacking philosophy, it'll work domestically. What happens at the Old Firm, either side, is that the expectations change. If you win domestically too much, then it starts to become about Europe as well. And if you're wedded to that ultra-attacking philosophy, that's not going to work in Europe. So I think one thing that I would give Barry a bit of praise for is, during his tenure, he went back to the more, I would say, traditional approach that we saw was adopted by Alex McLeish, by Walter Smith, where you changed horses for courses. It was slightly different in Europe than it was in the domestic situation. Now, Barry never got on top of the domestic situation, but at least you felt like there was adaptations for the different style of football you were going to face. And that's the one thing I'll be really interested to see with Russell Martin. Does he go with that? Has he learned from what happened at Southampton? And will he now look to adopt something slightly different in slightly different games? I think he has to be a success.
Yeah.
But time will tell. I think certainly in domestic football, the Ange Postecoglou factor, what we learned from his tenure, is that you just have to go after the cannon fodder, as it were. The lower lights in the league, the ones that are in the bottom 6, you have to just blow them away with attacking football. And that's how you rack up the confidence and rack up the goals that lead you to a league title.
Yes, and that tells me as well, as we've said numerous times before, Russell Martin has to sort out certainly the defensive structure at Rangers. So that is key for me. Attack-wise, will be interesting. Certainly with these it's not domestic action, of course, but with Panathinaikos coming up, no Dessers or Eagleman featuring as yet. It certainly looks like Danilo will be the man leading the line for Rangers, but domestically it's an issue. Not enough goals are being scored by other players. It just seems to be an over-reliance on the guy leading the line. So chances need to be put to bed, and chances at the other end need to be stopped. So easier said than done, certainly last season for Rangers, but it's clear both ends of the pitch Rangers need to get better at if they are to sustain a proper title challenge next season. He'll be well aware of that. But go and check that piece out on the website, folks. It is well worth a read. Moving on from that then, love this. Phil gets in touch. Phil, let us know where you are. He says, morning on. Gotta love it when you live in a tiny village in England, go on the school run and your Rangers top in here. We are the people being shouted. We are you, Phil. Do let us know, please. I know that a number of you tune in from down south and far-flung places. The news yesterday we touched on, Jonny, the Tello Aasgaard. Maybe an injury doubt for certainly the first leg against Panathinaikos. A thigh knock picked up in that bounce game against Dunfermline. Bit of a blow, you would imagine, if he would be unavailable for that game.
Yeah, it's interesting, Derek, because Josh asked me to do a little piece on who I thought would start for the Panathinaikos game the other day. And I did think that without Tello Aasgaard, there's a few question marks about who'll start on the right. Now, Gassama's played there. I think Josh said he had 90 minutes for Sheffield Wednesday there, but he's more natural coming in onto his right foot off the left, which is obviously the kind of modern way, and it allows the fullbacks to bomb on. So I wonder if Gassama comes in and and starts on the right. Another option, and the comments just hold back. This is not me saying this. This is
here we go.
based on what we've seen in pre-season. I think Kieran Dowell, the manager, has said that he's part of the leadership group. He's quite open about that. He started the game against Dunfermline, which was an extremely strong starting lineup. Could Dowell be coming in off the right onto his left foot? That's a possibility, and one that while I think many people would find surprising, based on his time at Rangers so far. There's always opportunities for players under different managers to perform better. Different regimes, different styles of football, different styles of management. Some people perform and react to that in different ways. So is it possible Kieran Dowell could be a much better player than that we've seen? It's absolutely possible. For me, based on what I've seen of Kieran Dowell, I would obviously say that he's one that should be leaving this summer. I've not seen anything to suggest that he's going to be good enough over the long term. But I'm not watching him in training every day, and I didn't watch every game that he played in Birmingham last season. Sorry. So there may be a case that Kieran Dowell's one of the players, perhaps alongside Danilo, that has impressed the manager in pre-season. Outside of that, if you go further than that, deeper than that, I don't think there's a lot there, Derek. You're talking about repurposing players from the left on the right.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, who are you going for on the right?
Of the attack, I'm with you. I've got to say, I know that some fans are getting a bit apprehensive. Kieran Dowell's getting a big say in that pre-season so far, but like you mentioned there, Jonny, he may be someone that, as Russell Martin touched on, a player that surprises him coming in. He certainly did well at Birmingham City last season. They loved him down there. Chris Davis is a big fan of his as well. I was actually surprised. He never tried to make that move a permanent one straight away, but it's not materialised. So you wonder if Birmingham are maybe casting, I know they've brought a number of players in Birmingham, maybe casting their net at perhaps at a higher level of player, because they are looking to bounce straight back up into the Premier League. So they may see Kieran Dowell as someone that could do them, well, has done them a turn, but may not take them on to that next level. So yeah, I can understand fans saying, but they don't want to see Kieran Dowell in the Rangers jersey again. I totally get that. It's a bit of fatigue because he seems to do, I don't think he's done anything of note. I know he scored a goal at Fir Park during his time, but that aside, has he done anything of any great distinction?
He hasn't, Derek. And again, just to reiterate, because I'm getting absolutely battered in the comments. I'm not. It's not me that's saying this, guys. I'm basing it on the fact that he's played all these pre-season games, and that the manager has said he's part of the leadership group, which is odd for a player that you were going to jettison out. I think one of the comments that's quite interesting. People are talking about potentially Barami in there. Sloop JB, Barami could do a job there. Played there v Bruges, and he's probably got a point. I think Barami, one of his real strengths is he's not afraid of doing a defensive job. We've seen him do that on Callum McGregor a couple of times in Old Firm games to great success. Perhaps he's an option there. Probably more comfortable on the left, but I think something he could do. So Rangers, they do have options there. Just think that right side, Derek. I feel like we've been discussing that right side for so long, with the exception of last season with Vaclav Černý there. Yeah. That right side, since Daniel Candeias, no one's ever really nailed it down with the exception of Černý.
I totally agree with you on that one. And Černý still at Wolfsburg, isn't he? But he's been transfer listed there. He's deemed surplus to requirements. I would say, if I was Rangers, I would be bringing him back. I've got to say that is, when you had Černý there, that was the problem solved, Jonny. You didn't have to worry about it, but there you go.
It performed really, really well in both the Scottish domestic scene and in Europe as well. Now, there's a bigger thing than just his transfer fee, Derek. I think his wages were significant. I think they would have put him really, really in the Rangers stratosphere for wages. And obviously, the question mark is, does he want more in his next move than he's already getting paid? So does it make it kind of just a deal that can't be done? But certainly, if he was available, if he was to come available as the window went on, if he was to feel like, well, maybe Rangers is the best option that I've got, I don't think there would be many people that wouldn't be right behind that. Yes, he's probably reached a point where you're not going to get a massive sell on at 27, 28. You're getting a player in their prime.
Yeah.
But Czerny's obviously one that if you could get him in, but I really, Derek, don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, interesting point from Dave. He says Cortez on the right, Gassama on the left. Cortez has played there as well, of course. Yeah. So, it will be interesting. Russell Martin wants width, it's clear, and Rangers still looking to bring in more wingers, of course. Other than that, Gassama, Cortez will be there. They're looking for more in those wide areas, which is understandable. One player we haven't mentioned is Ross McCausland, Jonny. I don't think he will be part of Russell Martin's plans going forward, I reckon. I can certainly see him moving on at some point. But it's interesting that forward line. Do you go along with Danilo leading the line, given we haven't seen a Gaman and Dessers at this point? I think it would be unlikely for those two to sort of stake a claim and come right in on Tuesday.
I do, Derek. I think, again, it's not me. I think Danilo is someone I'd like to see given a chance. But it's a gamble. There's no doubt about that. It's a gamble in a huge game, the biggest European game of the season, no matter what happens.
Yep.
Because this one is the one that will decide almost how this campaign goes. Because if Rangers don't get through it, we know that they're going to go into the Europa League unseeded against some really big teams, potentially really difficult teams, and it's in qualifying round 3. So it's not even as if you're going into the playoffs. It's or qualifying round 4. There's another. It's the one before the playoff, whatever it is. So it's challenging. So this one would be really important because if you get through it, then you're guaranteed into the Europa League group stage, even if you go out in the next round of the Champions League. Massively, massively important for Rangers. And they just have to try and make something happen.
They absolutely do, of course. So, it's a huge game. Incidentally, that Panathinaikos game, have got a Panathinaikos podcaster coming on the show Saturday morning. That'll be with you, folks. We'll get an insight into what Rangers can expect when they come up against the Greek side. One to look forward to over the weekend. Get your Rangers review fix. In terms of, you mentioned, you're quite right to say that was a strong team that took on Dunfermline on Tuesday, Jonny.
Yeah.
I had a chat with Joshua yesterday on the show about the back line. He reckons we may see James Tavernier at right back and Max Aarons at left back.
Yeah.
That doesn't sit too well with me, I've got to say. Max Aarons was brought in to play right back. It certainly doesn't bode well for the left backs that are at the club already. You feel comfortable about that backline, Suter and Giga, with the two centre halves that started the game as well? I think that's probably the most likely the centre back pairing.
Derek, how can you feel comfortable? You really can't feel comfortable because you don't know what Giga's like. Giga might be the biggest bomb scare since, Marvin Andrews on a bad day. Although Big Marvin, to be fair, he was.
I'd have Big Marv right now.
That's an unfair comparison. Just couldn't think of anyone else off the top of my head. But Marv I had the odd mistake on him. Without knowing what these individual players are going to give, Max Aarons, I've seen a little bit of, obviously, but I'm not a Max Aarons expert. I've not watched, thousands of minutes of Max Aarons play, and certainly not a left back. It's one of those ones where how is he going to perform at left back? How comfortable is he in there? I just don't know. Giga, it's a bit of an unknown, isn't it? And he's got to combine with Aarons. I'm presuming Suter is going to start and Suter's going to be at right centre-back. Tavernier's just
He's played on the left, I think, Jonny. I think Giga was played on the right, which, again, I'm uncomfortable with. I don't think Suter puts the left-hand side.
That's interesting, Derek. That's interesting because I always think Suter looks much more comfortable on the right than he does on the left.
Yeah.
in my experience. Yes, he's played on the left a number of times for the club, but always just feel more comfortable when he's on that right-hand side. And obviously, he's got a relationship with Tavernier going back now a couple of seasons at least. So, yeah, I mean, Tavernier was what I was about to say was he's always a guy that's going to set the comments ablaze because he's someone that really, really divides opinion, Derek. There's, I think, a growing amount of people who would describe themselves as Tavernier critics, and that's kind of understandable because he's getting to that age where he is not the force that he once was by any shape or form. I still think Tavernier, in terms of overall output, like last season, I don't think he was one of Rangers' poor performers. He has his moments where he is a poor performer. He has games where he makes mistakes. You saw that in the probably the biggest game of Rangers' season last year against Bilbao, when he falls asleep at the back post and Williams sneaks in and pops that header in. That's just an example of what can happen with Tav. He's not the most defensively sound right backs. But what he does give you going forward, we know about, even though it's diminished. If Rangers can go out and find a left back that, or make the most out of Jeffrey, then that would allow Aarons to go over there and make that right back his own. And when Sterling gets back fit, Rangers are very, very, very strong in the right back area. Aarons, Sterling, and Tavernier. So you wonder how much game time Tavernier is going to get at that point. But no, I can't say that I'm comfortable with it, Derek. It's going up against a good side in Panathinaikos. We know that, and we just don't have enough information about how that back four will work. So anyone telling you that they are comfortable, I think is probably telling porcupines.
When Sterling gets back fit, where have I heard that before? That's been plagued him during his time at Rangers, unfortunately. Great player. Love him in the Rangers team, but he's just not been in there consistently enough, unfortunately. People are taking issue to your Marvin Andrews quip, Jonny. Yeah. Robert says, blasphemy, Jonny. And there's a quip.
Honestly, I do take that back. I should have. There was so many to choose from, and my mind went blank. It's old age. Marvin was a right good player, let's be honest.
So Baltimore Man says, Mosney, Svensson, proper. Choose life.
Yes.
So choose
fair point. Hold my hands up on that one.
Let's hope Gigas. He looks a big unit of a lad. Hopefully that he can be a real good acquisition for Rangers this season. Certainly, Wolverhampton Wanderers don't pay 10 million quid if the guy's a bit of a diddy, of course. He did well at Red Star Belgrade. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Moving on from that.
On that, Derek, I think Giga has got a really good pedigree. If you look at the level he's performed at in Europe in the Champions League, he's done this before. It's not like Fernandez, who, for me, going from League One to the Champions League, that is a massive jump for any player. I can't imagine that he'll be right first and foremost in the manager's thoughts. To me, he's more likely to be a project player, initially bled in via domestic football. But Giga, he's not played much in the Premier League, but it's very difficult to get in a Wolves side. They spend big money compared to what any Scottish club plays, and he's got that experience from a young guy. He's been playing football. I think he's had 200 and odd games. He's only 22, so you're talking about an experienced defender who can handle tough ties and high quality opponents. So you just got to hope that he finds a partnership quickly and settles in with John Souttar alongside him for this game, because that's going to be at the core of everything. Do they connect? Do they dovetail well? Central defence is always about a team effort, isn't it? It's no one individual. It's always how they come together. You think about the great Rangers central defences. You think about Carlos Cuellar and Davy Weir. They dovetailed, didn't they? You think about Richard Gough and John Brown. They dovetailed. That's how it works. So I think there'll be a lot of work going on in the training field to make sure that they know each other's game and they know what the other one is liable to do in any given situation, because that's a big part of it, understanding and anticipating.
Yeah, a big shout out and hello to a friend of the show, Stephen Purden, is tuning in from Dubai. 40 degrees over there. I would just frazzle.
Yeah, that's
that
too hot for
was
me.
game over for me. Yeah, but good to have you tuning in, Stephen. There's an interesting point that I brought up just on Wolves spending 10 million quid on the boy. Doug quite rightly says it. Not sure, Derek. Wolves paid 35 million quid for Fabio Silva. Incidentally, he had a great loan spell at Las Palmas.
Yeah.
Seems to be impressing at the Wolves training camp. Seen the latest reports, I think there's a number of clubs that were keen on possibly signing him from Wolves. I know Dortmund have been linked with him, Leipzig as well. So just a case of a player in the wrong movie, perhaps, during his time at Rangers. Jonny, you often see big players coming to Scottish football and finding it tough. Was it just a case with that with Fabio Silva? Showed decent flashes at points, but never quite worked.
Yeah, 10 goals in 24 games in La Liga for Las Palmas. That's pretty good going. Listen, I always said at the time, I thought he was a good player, but he was in the wrong movie. He wasn't what Rangers needed at the time. Rangers needed a goal scorer. They needed someone who could reliably put the ball in the back of the net week in, week out. And if they'd got that player, then they would have won that league. They would have won the league. And I still look back on that and think that decision to bring in Fabio Silva was a decision that almost decided it. If Rangers had pushed the boat out and got someone who was capable
of striker,
yeah, like Fabio Silva was a guy who's a fluid player who can play across the front three. He's very talented, but he wasn't the main man at that time to take Rangers on his shoulders and fire them to glory, to use the sort of tabloid parlance. You know, he wasn't the guy to take them over the line, and that's what absolutely was needed at that point. I'm not a big one for speculate to accumulate, but I think that there's moments in time where it's right. And I think that was a moment in time that it was right. As Peggy McPhail says, and I've probably bored everyone to death making this point, but I think that the guy at that time was Lawrence Shankland. It would have been expensive. It would have been money down the drain to a certain extent, in the fact that you're never going to be able to recoup that money that you would spend on him. But it would have been an investment to try and win that title. A Miovski or a Shankland at that time, if those deals could have been done. And perhaps, Derek, they just couldn't have been. But that type of profile, a guy that can score goals, I really, really, really do think that was what was missing. And ultimately, I think, did Fabio Silva score? I think it was something like 3, 4, 5 goals. It wasn't many for Rangers.
Many. No,
and it became a bit of a damp squib that move. So yeah. It's all very well looking back with hindsight, but I think that's one that, you know, a lot of people were looking at it at the time and saying Rangers need a goal scorer because they create a lot of chances and they don't convert them.
Well, they're well in the title race. They were top of the league, if you remember it as well. I just thought that a proper number 9, another alternative to Cyril Dessers and the guys that were there at the time, who could have really pushed Rangers on and won that title, and we could have had a very different ending to that season than the one we had. I think it cost Rangers, I've got to say. So, yeah, you need to have firepower in there if you're going to win the league, and for me, Rangers just came up short on that. Moving on to the here and now, because a number of comments are coming in. Reports over in Spain. Interested to get your thoughts on this, Jonny. Paul and many others in any news on Raskin. He's been linked with both clubs in Sevilla and Real Betis. Yeah, again, it's nothing new. Clubs that have been linked with Raskin in this window already, I think, namely down south. But this is, I think, the first clubs from Spain to be credited with an interest in him. I've said it before. I think Rangers should be building the team around this lad. It was interesting to hear Russell Martin's comments on him down at St George's Park, where he says he's looking for him to do a lot less work than what he did last season, as he looks to try and bring his game on to another level. He's a cracking player, really come into his own in the last season, hence why he's been called up to the Belgian national team. It would be a real shame if he was to depart this window, Jonny, because he is a class act.
Yeah, obviously it's something that the Rangers review will be looking at over the coming days when there's links of any kind of substance made abroad. Yeah. We'll have to dig into that and find out whether or not there is anything there. What I would say is that for me, Nicholas Raskin was the best player as a midfielder in Scotland for the last 6 months of the season. I thought he was outstanding once he came back into the side. There's more to come from him as a player. I don't think he's reached his ceiling or anything like it. I was interested to hear Russell Martin to say that with him, less is more. To me, does that mean that he's going to be playing as a 6 or as an 8? You know, and he's kind of decided. I still think Raskin is more of a 6. I agree with the player himself. I know that's what he thinks. And I'm surprised if there's a feeling that he's an 8. I know box to box is something that's quite difficult to find, and he's got the energy, and he's also got a goal in him. And they maybe think that as an 8, you get more potential down the line in terms of value. But I just think he's got that quality to control a game, and if he can get some experience in there, I think he would grow into that role. It's the one player that Rangers have, I think, looks comfortable in there, dictating the tempo of a game. And listen, Raskin's is such a good player that you can almost play him anywhere. But I do think that he has the ability to do that, to sit there. Yeah. Listen, I think everything that we're hearing is that Joe Rothwell is going to be the guy that's going to be doing that role, though, and they see Raskin moving further forward and being a bit more all action. And I think maybe what Russell Martin's identified is you've got a guy that's clearly one of, if not the best player on the team, who's trying to do too much because he's got the quality. One of the things I remember a lot about the kind of 2005 to 2008 period under it was a couple of managers, but primarily Walter Smith, was that Barry Ferguson at the time, he was almost, he certainly wasn't as good as he was in his first spell at the club. And I think part of that was he was surrounded by such good players in his first spell. He'd just do one role and he could rely on the other people around him to be of a certain level that he could shine doing that one thing. Yeah. I always felt frustrated watching him later in his career, and I know why he was doing it, because he was desperate to help the team. But he was bombing around trying to do different things, and I think he lost some of the discipline that made him such a terrific player in his first time around. And listen, I'm not criticising Barry. I still think he was an unbelievable football player for Rangers. But it was partly that he was trying to do too much to help the team. And I think that's what Russell Martin's perhaps getting at a little bit with Nico Raskin. In terms of the sale, Derek, look, every player at Rangers is for sale. We have to be aware of that. Yeah. You know, this is a club in Scottish football where the finances of the TV deal are dreadful in comparison with the major leagues. So there absolutely has to be an element of realism when it comes to transfer offers, especially when players are coming towards the end of their contract. Now, Raskin has been at the club for a while, and his contract doesn't have 5 years to run. It doesn't have 4 years to run anymore. So you have to be thinking down the line and what can happen if we go another season without seeing that contract signed by the player, and that means his value is going to go down. So if an offer comes in from a big European club in a top 5 league, then Rangers, I think, will certainly look at it, and the player will certainly look at it. I would like to see Raskin carrying on, but it depends on whether or not he signs a new deal, because I don't think Rangers should be continuing with him if he doesn't commit to the longer term, because otherwise you're going to be in the same situation as we've been through so many times before with top quality players at the club, people like Alfredo Morelos, like Ryan Kent, where they were able to walk away for nothing in those cases when they did have serious transfer value. And if Raskin hangs around, then his transfer value will, of course, diminish. And to me, that's unacceptable. So we'll see how it plays out. I think there's still more to go on this. I'd like to see him stay. But if you're asking me, Derek, do I think he'll stay or do I think he'll go? I think it's 50-50. I think it could go either way depending on what twists and turns we see in the window as it continues.
Just on his value, I just think we're in a World Cup year. He's been called up to Belgium the last couple of internationals.
Yeah.
If he goes on and has a good, if he will get selected first of all, and then has a good World Cup with Belgium, goes far in that competition, may see more eyes on him. That may spark up his value somewhat. So a bit of a catch-22 situation for me on that one. I'm not necessarily, if it doesn't want to sign a new deal, then need to get short of him at this point. Yeah, one to keep an eye on for sure. And why not wrap up with this? I think I asked you about this last week, Jonny, when you were on. This will certainly spark debate. Coco Beware says, morning, chaps. Is the Windass question worth a chat? Because he has had his contract terminated at Sheffield Wednesday alongside Michael Smith down there due to the sad state of affairs at Wednesday. It really is shocking what's happening down there. So the pair of them have decided to rip up their contracts and go and find other clubs. Now, there's a host of clubs down south that are been linked with Josh Windass. Would you like, if on a free, Jonny, would you be a fan of that? Certainly his numbers last season show that he's certainly a better player than he was when he left Rangers at the time. If you're just going on pure hard facts, for me, just on the playing aspect of it, then it's certainly something that I would be considering if I was a part of the recruitment team. Wouldn't be a popular signing if Rangers were to bring him back home, though, I'd imagine.
I don't know about that, Derek. I mean, like 31 years old, free transfer, a bit of experience. I think the questions around him were not really on football ability. It was about consistency. As you say, though, you look at the player he's becoming, not the player that he was. It was a significant amount of time ago now that he left. Remember, he made his move, I think, 2018. I might be wrong, but yeah, I think it was the start of the Gerard era.
Yeah,
so I mean, 2025, we're 7 years on, Derek, and in that time, he scored 40 goals and had 17 assists in 173 games in the Championship. So, listen, he is a player of some repute, in terms of what he brings to the table. You look back to his time in the Scottish Premiership, we're always talking about the domestic performance, why Rangers need to get better numbers in there. And his numbers were good, 52 games, 12 goals and 13 assists.
Yep.
So a goal contribution, 1 in every 2 games. So if you're looking at it like that, and you're looking for a player that can give you a little bit of something for the domestic game, you know that he's going to deliver a certain level of output. I don't mind it, Derek, but I don't know if this is one of these ones where it's just an obvious lazy link, because Windass played in the past. He's available for a free. He's part of the market that Rangers are shopping in. They've already shopped at that club at Sheffield Wednesday so far this window, so they have been watching them. I get why people are talking about it, but I don't think we've substantiated it from a Rangers review point of view. So I wouldn't be getting too excited. This is more of a hypothetical at the moment rather than anything factual.
Yeah.
And listen, I would imagine there'll be a significant amount of interest based on what he's done in the Championship over the last few years. There won't be a lack of interest, that's for sure.
No.
And I think he'll want to assess all his options, having just been able to wangle himself out of his contract. And he'll want to ensure that at 31, whatever deal he's signed is a deal that really gives him some security for the rest of his life. Listen, Josh Windass will have earned really, really, really well, Derek. Make no bones about it. Compared to you and me, he'll be a very, very, very rich man. But at the same time, he's not played at Premier League level. He's not been earning the 50 grand, the 75 grand, the 100 grand, the 200 grand a week that takes you into a stratosphere. So he will be wanting to make sure at 31, still performing really, really well at a high level, that he can get some sort of 3-year deal that gives him serious long-term security and some financial reward for the situation he's in. He's probably a £5 million player who's available for nothing, and listen, that's going to entice premium wages, I would think.
Yep. A few of you asking as well about what's the European squad, Rangers. It was the deadline last night, 11 p.m. Rangers had to submit their 25-man squad for both legs. So, I don't think Rangers have released that information as yet. We are doing a bit of digging, folks, to find out who is in that squad. It will be intriguing, that's for sure. But we'll wrap up there for now. Big thank you to Jonny. I love this. You got a fan here in Peggy, Jonny. She says, great show, Jonny. Don't be a stranger. We miss you when you're not on. You've been on quite a fair bit the last few weeks. People have been taking well-deserved breaks and holidays. So good to have you on as ever.
Yeah, delighted to be on, Derek. Obviously, I used to be on this every single day, and now I've got a new job where I'm doing different things. But it's still nice to come on and talk Rangers and get into the weeds of some of the issues. There's been loads to talk about, even though it's still pre-season. And listen, Derek, it's going to be such a fascinating season. I can't wait for the season to get started. There's so much unknown about what's about to take place, and it's always the case when you get a new manager, but particularly one that's got such an interesting philosophy. And you ally that with the fact that this club is changing in dramatic ways. You've got Kevin Thelwell in, who's completely taken a different view of what the transfer policy is going to be to the previous incumbent in his role, or the closest approximation you could get to his role in Niels Koppen. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how it all comes together, and fascinating to assess it once you get the facts on the table as to what each of these individual players is capable of and what they can do and what the best shape might be, and how Scottish football adapts to Martin, and then how Martin adapts to Scottish football. So one thing's absolutely for sure, this is going to be a fascinating show to watch every day, because there's going to be so much once the action gets started to chew over. And I can't wait. I can't wait for it to get started.
Yeah, you and me both. Dean the Life says, cheers, lads. Show on tomorrow. Yes, that show with the Panathinaikos podcaster, buddy, will be with you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So, yeah, we will have you covered tomorrow anyway, as we build up to that huge game on Tuesday night. Right, enjoy your Friday and your weekend, whatever you are up to, folks. And I'm off on Monday, so I think it'll be. I think Chris is back his holidays, so you will have you sorted anyway. So enjoy your weekend, and we'll chat to you again soon. Bye for now.